Welcome to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. Before we plunge into today's whirlwind, make sure you're subscribed, tap that like button, leave your thoughts in the comments, and if you'd like to go the extra mile, hit join to become part of our close-knit circle. With that, let's step into one of the week's most heated storms, where a pause spoke louder than 1,000 statements and a whisper of restraint turned into the center of the conversation. Sometimes the quiet stretches so far it starts to echo. For days, people watched the stillness around actor Gökberk Yildirim and read it like a headline. He didn't react immediately, didn't post a hurried note, didn't throw a spark into the fire. The silence became its own character, a presence that made onlookers lean closer. And when he finally appeared, he didn't come with rage or pointed fingers. He arrived with care, with a careful balance between truth and tenderness, and a tone that felt as if every word had been weighed before it touched the air. It all started with a handful of seconds, recorded in the haze of a crowded venue, the bass thudding and lights sinking into shadow. A phone lens caught a sliver of a moment, Gökberk leaning in, speaking to a young woman, their faces near, a hush between them misread as secret. No beginning, no end, no sound worth deciphering. Just an image cut loose from context, a shape that could be anything anyone wanted it to be. But fragments travel fast. In a world ravenous for spectacle, a fragment transforms into a feast. By sunrise, the clip ricocheted across timelines, turning doubt into sport. Silence was treated like a signature on a confession. Every hour without a comment became fresh fuel. The angles were grainy, the setting chaotic, yet people argued with absolute certainty. Some swore the scene captured betrayal beyond question, others said the lens had lied by omission, that perspective can warp meaning until truth looks like its own shadow. As the frenzy rippled outward, the dangerous comfort of certainty hardened into judgment. Then came the evening that cracked the surface. At an event for a brand he represents, beneath cameras and controlled lights, Gökberk Yildirim faced the questions that hovered like smoke. He looked tired, not broken, his voice steady with feeling. He explained that the woman in the video was a childhood friend, a person who had lived far outside the story strangers tried to force her into. Their exchange had been personal, not romantic, a conversation lifted out of its setting and mistaken for something it wasn't. In that moment, he wasn't just straightening a crooked narrative, he was shielding someone who never asked to be dragged before an audience. He underlined something many forget in the speed of public opinion: you cannot mine intention from a single angle. You cannot demand that a private life be audited in front of flashing lights just because it's visible. He drew a line, firm, unshaken. He would not turn his relationships into a subscription feed. He would not parade proof to soothe curiosity. And without naming her, everyone felt the presence of a familiar figure, the one the public has associated with him for years, Cemre Arda. The story of Gökberk Yildirim and Cemre Arda has long existed in that delicate space where warmth refuses to pose for the camera. They have always preferred a quieter rhythm, choosing the unseen over the staged. Their decision to protect what binds them has often been mistaken for distance or secrecy. And it was that very privacy, their chosen way of loving, that many tried to use against them this week, as if refusing to perform were itself proof of something to hide. Those who move through their orbit say Cemre's silence is not surrender, nor a performance of hurt. It is her poise. She hasn't written cryptic captions, hasn't dropped clues to pull attention, hasn't played tug-of-war with speculation. She is working, living, preserving her calm. To people who know her, Cemre values loyalty, purpose, and family in a way likes and shares can't measure. She believes love is not a prop. She believes that the strongest answers often arrive without applause. A close friend of Gökberk, speaking without lending a name to the spotlight, shared that the actor felt shaken, not by insults tossed from the sidelines, but by the fragility that grips trust when strangers decide a narrative for you. Imagine building a future on loyalty, and watching it get rewritten by a camera that never caught the beginning or the end. Imagine seeing old friendships, the kind rooted in childhood, weaponized by people who will never know the full story. That, the friend said, is what rattled him most. Even after his measured words, the debate didn't vanish, it only changed tempo. Comment sections split like tides. Some dug their heels in, demanding more, urging him to show receipts that no one is obliged to produce. Others stepped back and apologized, admitting that a rumor had been allowed to masquerade as fact. The shift wasn't clean, it rarely is. But the tone slid from accusation toward consideration, from shouting to a kind of uneasy listening. If there was a deeper thread woven into his statement, it was this: boundaries still matter, even when the world wants a front-row seat to everything. He refused to push someone else into the glare to prove he was right. He refused to feed the beast by opening doors that were never meant to be public. He reminded everyone that being known isn't the same as being owed. And that love is not an exhibit just because the people inside it are familiar faces. What happens next is uncertain. Maybe the woman in the video will speak and echo what he said. Maybe she'll remain quiet, honoring a friendship that was stretched and misread. Perhaps another angle will surface, or perhaps this will be all there is. Either way, one thing stands unmoved: he rejected the accusation not by scrambling for excuses, but by anchoring himself to principle. He chose restraint when provoked, empathy when cornered, and truth without spectacle. That choice now floats in the public air as an invitation to all of us to think about the cost of our curiosity. Because this is bigger than one clip in a loud room. It's about what we do with the pieces of other people's lives. It's about the way a cut of footage can be sharpened into a blade. It's about how quickly we turn possibility into verdict, and how hard it is to undo that damage, even when the explanation arrives with care. A relationship can survive a lot. But the pressure of strangers deciding the meaning of your moments can bend even the strongest of bonds if you let it. That, perhaps more than anything, is what Gökberk and Cemre are protecting: the right to decide the shape and pace of their own story. There is a detail many missed while dissecting the clip. The lack of performance in his eyes when he spoke about respect. That wasn't a line for cameras. It was the conviction of someone who understands the weight of being watched and still chooses not to make a spectacle of the people he loves. Protecting someone else's dignity even when it would be convenient to expose them, that is not the theater of a guilty man. That is a principle. And principles are expensive. Cemre's quiet, too, speaks in its own language. It says she won't barter her peace for short-term vindication. It says her life exists beyond the echo chamber, that her love and her work don't need a chorus to validate them. Those who have spent time around the couple describe a partnership built on steady rhythms, shared schedules, laughter in ordinary moments, an agreement to keep the precious things close. It's not that they are hiding, it's that they are choosing. There is a difference. Of course, the comment threads keep pulsing. Some voices insist that fame requires constant disclosure, that choosing the spotlight means forfeiting the right to shade. Others push back, arguing that the very essence of maturity is the ability to step away from the audience and care for what matters without seeking applause. In this split, a question lingers: do we want to know because we care, or because we crave a show? The answer isn't flattering when we say it out loud. For his part, Gökberk held his line with grace. He acknowledged the noise, but he didn't let it instruct his behavior. He held space for the woman who was pulled into the narrative, and he held space for Cemre, whose name he didn't have to say for it to be felt. He refused to trade their privacy for public comfort. And in a culture that keeps asking for more, he offered less on purpose, ready to handle the consequences of that choice. It's rare. It is also the point. People close to the couple say that, in private, the tone is quieter than the internet. Friends check in. Family members reassure. Work carries on. The life that existed before the clip is still there, intact, a little bruised by the chatter but not broken by it. That's the reality that never trends, the steady continuity of ordinary days. You can weather a storm with calm not because it is painless, but because you know what you're holding on to. And now, as the outrage exhaustion sets in, the timeline looks different. Where there was eagerness to condemn, there is a pause. Where there was a hunger for scandal, there is the uneasy knowledge that maybe we did not see enough to speak so loudly. His honesty did not drown out criticism, it retuned the conversation. It reminded people that context is not a technicality, it's the difference between rumor and truth. So we circle back to where this began, with a fragment, a rush to judge, and a man who chose not to turn his heart into content. If more is said, we will listen. If nothing more appears, we will sit with that. What remains steady is the principle he stood on, and the quiet strength with which Cemre continues to move. Their bond has survived attention before. It can survive this, too, if we let it breathe. Now tell us, dear viewers of Turkish Spotlight Secrets. Should the lives of people in the public eye remain theirs to protect, or does visibility demand constant disclosure? Can a few seconds of video carry the weight of an accusation that can change lives, or do we owe each other the patience to ask before deciding? Let us know your thoughts below, because the conversation is not just about them, it's about the way we all watch, judge, and choose. If you enjoyed this deep dive, remember to like, share your perspective in the comments, and subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets for more stories told with care. If you want to support us further, the join button is there to welcome you into our community. Thank you for being here. Until next time, stay thoughtful, be gentle with the truth, and never forget, the screen shows a slice, not the whole story.